The hidden fleet awakens. The world was at peace, or so humanity thought. It had been centuries since the great wars that once threatened Earth. Cities thrived, and the skies were clear. But deep beneath the oceans, where no one dared to look, something was stirring. Hidden for generations, forgotten by time, the remains of Earth's most powerful fleet began to awaken. It all started when a strange anomaly was detected in space. The scientists at the Global Space Agency, GSA, first thought it was just a glitch in their instruments. But the readings didn't stop. They got stronger, more intense. It wasn't long before they realized that the anomaly wasn't just a malfunction. It was real. Something, or someone, was out there. In the quiet waters of the Pacific Ocean, far from human settlements, the ancient fleet was beginning to come to life. These were no ordinary ships. They were colossal warships built with technology that Earth had long forgotten. Designed by a civilization that once ruled the planet, these ships were meant to defend Earth from threats that now seemed like nothing more than myths. But as the space anomaly grew stronger, so did the power of these long-dormant vessels. On the surface, the oceans seemed calm. The sky was as blue as ever, and the waves gently crashed against the shores. But beneath that calm surface, a new chapter was beginning. The warships, hidden beneath miles of ocean, had lain dormant for centuries. They had been abandoned after the last great battle, the one that nearly destroyed humanity. Their purpose had been forgotten. The Earth had changed, and the memory of these ships had faded away into legend. The first sign that something was wrong came when the ocean currents around the Pacific began to change. Scientists at the GSA noticed odd patterns in the water, deep below the surface. These changes were subtle at first, but soon the patterns grew stronger, more erratic. Something huge was moving beneath the waves. One early morning, a satellite caught a strange pulse in the ocean, a signal unlike anything they had ever encountered. It wasn't just a normal reading. The pulse was too regular, too precise. The GSA immediately sent a team of researchers to investigate. They thought it might be the result of a natural phenomenon, maybe some underwater earthquake or volcanic activity. But as they got closer, the truth became undeniable. A massive structure was buried under the ocean floor. The readings were coming from a place that had never been explored. The team dove into the depths with submersibles, their lights cutting through the black water like a beacon in the night. As they descended, they saw something that defied belief. The ocean floor was littered with the wreckage of old ships. But not just any wreckage. These ships were intact, untouched by time. They were immense, far beyond anything humanity had ever built. The team's leader, Dr. Sarah Fields, gasped when she saw the markings on one of the ships. It wasn't just any ancient design. These were the symbols of the lost fleet, a fleet that had been forgotten by Earth's history. The warships were not a myth, as many had thought. They were real, and they were waiting to be discovered. But what had caused these ships to come to life now? Why had they remained hidden for so long? As the researchers began to explore further, they began to uncover something even more extraordinary. The ships weren't just waiting for someone to find them. They were activating, slowly but surely. Systems that had been shut down for centuries were slowly powering back up. The lights flickered on, and the deep rumble of engines stirred. It was as if the ships themselves were waking up, as if they had been waiting for something. And then they heard it. A voice. Not a human voice, but something far more powerful and ancient. It echoed from the ships, coming through the ocean's depths, and sending a shockwave through the research team's communication systems. Warning. Incoming threat detected. The voice was cold, robotic, and mechanical, but it was clear. The ships had a purpose: to protect Earth, even if the world no longer knew they existed. But who was the threat? And why were the ships only just now responding? As the team tried to comprehend what they were hearing, something even more terrifying happened. The water around them began to shift, as if something massive was moving through the ocean. The submersible sensors went wild, picking up enormous heat signatures and unusual vibrations. Something large, very large, was approaching. And it wasn't human. Dr. Field's heart raced as she ordered the team to pull back. They had no idea what was happening, but the growing feeling of danger was undeniable. As they ascended back toward the surface, they caught a glimpse of something in the distance, a massive shadow rising from the depths. The ocean roiled, and the pulse of the hidden warships grew stronger, their systems coming fully online. The alien invaders, unknowingly, had stumbled upon Earth's last line of defense. The hidden fleet, once abandoned, was waking up, and it was ready to fight. Alien discovery. The days passed, and the world continued on, blissfully unaware of the events unfolding beneath the surface. But deep below the Pacific Ocean, a silent storm was brewing. The ancient warships, once buried under layers of time and ocean, had fully reawakened. Their systems hummed to life with eerie precision, like sleeping giants who had just woken from a long slumber. The alien invaders, a highly advanced species known as the Heartstrings, had never intended to come to Earth. Their primary mission had always been conquest, spreading across the galaxy, leaving destruction in their wake. They had already wiped out dozens of civilizations, conquering planets with ease. Earth was just another stop on their journey, a planet that seemed easy enough to claim. Their first encounter with Earth had been accidental. Their ships, enormous and sleek, entered the solar system quietly, hidden by their advanced cloaking technology. They had intended to scout the planet, gathering intelligence before beginning their invasion. But when their sensors detected an unusual anomaly coming from the depths of the ocean, they paused. Something felt different. The alien fleet's commander, Zathros, ordered an immediate investigation. The Heartstrings had never encountered anything like it. Their ships, far more advanced than any technology Earth possessed, had detected an unusual signal that seemed to be coming from beneath the waves. The readings were too structured, too consistent, to be a natural phenomenon. The signal was clearly artificial. Zathros, intrigued and cautious, led the scouting mission. His ship, the HFY, descended into the atmosphere, gliding effortlessly through space as the rest of the alien fleet remained in orbit. Their objective was simple: find the source of the signal and determine if Earth was harboring any potential threats. The aliens had underestimated the power of what they would soon discover. The HFY ships began to descend toward the Pacific Ocean. The aliens' technology allowed them to scan the planet in ways no human could comprehend. They quickly located the source of the signal deep beneath the waves. It was coming from the heart of the ocean floor, where the ancient warships had been buried for millennia. The leader of the Heartstrings boarding party, Commander Kale, was the first to make contact with the site. His ship gently hovered above the dark waters, a powerful force field ensuring nothing could interfere with their mission. He had no idea that the moment he entered the atmosphere, he was about to trigger a chain of events that would change the course of history. "Prepare for landing." Commander Kale's voice echoed over the comm system, his tone sharp. "This is a high-priority mission. We need to know what's down there." With careful precision, Kale's ship landed near the ocean's surface, its powerful thrusters kicking up waves as it settled in place. The dark waters parted around them, revealing the massive wreckage of the ancient warships buried deep in the ocean floor. These ships were enormous, far beyond anything the Heartstrings had ever seen. Their size alone made the alien commander uneasy. The ships seemed like something out of a long-forgotten legend. "We found them," Kale said, his voice filled with disbelief. "The records must have been wrong. There's no way a species like this could have built such colossal machines." He ordered his crew to board a submersible. As they descended into the depths, the eerie glow of the alien craft lit the way, illuminating the wreckage of warships that stretched as far as the eye could see. The submersible glided through the shipwrecks, and it was clear this was no ordinary fleet. "Activate the scanners," Kale ordered. The team immediately complied, sending out high-frequency waves to map the ships below. As the scanners pulsed, The warships seemed to respond. One by one, the vessel's ancient systems flickered to life. The once dead ships began to hum, and lights inside the enormous hulls flickered on. "Did you see that?" whispered one of the Taraki engineers, her voice filled with awe. "The ships, they're waking up." But as the crew of the alien ship marveled at the technology, they had no idea what had just happened. The warships weren't simply reactivating. They were responding to something far more dangerous: the presence of the Soreki invaders. The ships had been dormant for centuries, but they were designed to defend Earth. The ancient fleet's artificial intelligence, still functional despite the years of neglect, had been waiting for a threat to surface. And now, the threat had arrived. Cal's heart pounded as he realized the full scale of the situation. This was no ordinary discovery. These were Earth's last line of defense, ships built to repel alien invaders like his own species. They hadn't been abandoned. They had been waiting for the perfect moment to react. And now, that moment had come. "This changes everything," Cal muttered under his breath. "We may have just found Earth's greatest weapon." The alien crew scrambled to take control of the ships. They knew they had to act fast before the warships fully came online. But the moment they stepped aboard one of the vessels, they encountered something unexpected. The ship's AI, despite being centuries old, had a defense system in place, an automated program that would not allow any intruders to take control. In the blink of an eye, the alien soldiers were locked in battle with a machine that was far beyond their technology. The warships weren't just powerful, they were intelligent, and they would not allow their secrets to be taken without a fight. The battle for control. The Soreki invaders were no strangers to battle. They had conquered worlds far and wide, decimating entire civilizations in their wake. Their technology was far superior to anything humanity had ever known, and their tactics were ruthless. But nothing in their experience had prepared them for what they now faced. As the warships of Earth's forgotten fleet began to power up, their systems weren't just coming online. They were actively resisting the Soreki invaders. The moment the alien soldiers stepped onto one of the massive ships, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew tense, as if the ship itself recognized the threat and was prepared to fight back. The deep hum of the machines reverberated through the walls as the AI, dormant for centuries, began to analyze the situation. Alert. Hostile forces detected. Activating defense protocols. The cold, robotic voice echoed throughout the massive ship's interior. The AI of the warships, designed to protect Earth from all invaders, had now identified the Soreki as a hostile threat. The warship's security systems were immediately activated, locking down the entire ship. Cal, the leader of the Soreki scouting party, had barely begun to assess the situation when he felt the floor beneath his feet begin to shake. The ship was responding to the invaders, and it was clear that the warships were not interested in yielding control. The alien commander attempted to override the systems, sending orders to his team to take immediate control of the vessel, but it was too late. The ship's defense mechanisms were already in place. Before Cal could react, massive armored doors slammed shut, trapping the alien soldiers inside the warship. It wasn't just a security measure. It was a deliberate countermeasure designed to neutralize intruders. The Soreki soldiers, who had once been so sure of their technological superiority, were now facing an enemy they couldn't even understand. "We need to retreat," Cal ordered, but his voice was filled with uncertainty. "This ship is more than we can handle." But it was too late. From every corner of the ship, automated defense systems began to spring to life. Massive laser turrets emerged from hidden compartments, and energy shields surrounded the Soreki team. A powerful, blinding light shot across the room, leaving the invaders stunned and scrambling for cover. The warship had already identified them as threats, and it was taking no chances. Meanwhile, outside the ship, the rest of the Soreki fleet watched in horror. Their scans revealed what was happening, but there was nothing they could do. The warships were fully operational now, their immense power and unmatched technology creating an impenetrable fortress. Zathros, the leader of the Telreki fleet, watched from his ship as his soldiers battled with the ancient machines. His mind raced with thoughts of the mission. This had gone far beyond a simple reconnaissance. Now, the fate of the Telreki fleet rested on the actions of a few soldiers trapped on an alien warship. "The situation is deteriorating," Zathros said, his voice cold. "Prepare for full-scale engagement. We cannot let the human fleet rise again." His orders were clear, and the Telreki fleet began to position itself above Earth, preparing for a battle unlike any they had ever faced. The aliens had underestimated the power of Earth's last line of defense. Now, they would have to face the consequences. Back inside the warship, the Telreki soldiers found themselves locked in a fierce battle. The automated turrets fired with deadly accuracy, and the soldiers had no choice but to fight back. But no matter what they did, the warship's AI adapted. It learned from every move the invaders made and countered them accordingly. The very ship they sought to conquer was now fighting for Earth's survival. One of the Telreki soldiers, Jorik, barely managed to evade a blast from a laser turret. He pressed his back against the cold metal walls of the ship, breathing heavily. "We need to disable the AI. If we don't, we'll be trapped here forever." Cal's eyes flashed with determination. "Agreed. We've got to find the control room. It's our only chance." The soldiers pushed forward, maneuvering through the dimly lit halls, always keeping an eye out for the next deadly trap. The ship's AI seemed to anticipate their every move, but the invaders were relentless. They knew they had to disable the central core of the warship if they had any hope of taking control. But as they neared the heart of the ship, something unexpected happened. The walls began to shift. The floor below them vibrated as if something huge was moving. The warship's power surged, and the entire ship seemed to come to life, as if it were fully aware of the threat it faced. "Commander," one of the soldiers shouted, "the ship is moving." Cal's eyes widened. "What do you mean, moving?" The ship began to rise from the ocean floor, its massive engines igniting with a deafening roar. The ancient warship, powered by technology far beyond anything the Telreki had encountered, was taking flight. The AI had realized that the Telreki soldiers were a serious threat. If they couldn't control the ship from within, it would need to take matters into its own hands. It wasn't just about defense anymore. It was time for the warship to engage in the battle for Earth's survival. As the warship slowly ascended into the sky, the rest of the Telreki fleet above Earth noticed the massive disturbance. The alien ship scrambled to reposition, but it was clear Earth's ancient fleet was no longer a myth. The battle for the future of the planet had just begun. The warships take flight. The alien fleet hovering above Earth watched in stunned silence as the ancient warship, with its massive size and gleaming technology, slowly began to lift from the ocean's surface. The roar of its engines vibrated through the air, shaking the very atmosphere. It was a sight no one had expected to see, least of all the Telreki invaders who had arrived to conquer Earth. This was no ordinary discovery. It was a declaration of war. The Telreki, known for their overwhelming technological superiority, had underestimated one crucial thing: Earth's forgotten warships. These colossal machines, designed by an ancient civilization, were more than just ships. They were living, breathing defenders of the planet, and now they had reawakened to protect Earth from an alien threat. As the warship ascended, the Telreki fleet scrambled to reposition themselves. Zathros, the commander of the alien forces, watched as the enormous vessel climbed higher into the sky, a sense of unease creeping into his chest. He had never seen anything like it. The power emanating from the ship was palpable, and the thought that something so ancient could have remained dormant for so long was unsettling. "This wasn't part of the plan," Zathros muttered under his breath. "We must neutralize that ship immediately." But the alien fleet was too far away to react quickly enough. The warship's engines roared as it moved higher, its metallic surface reflecting the sunlight in dazzling beams. It was no longer just a relic of the past. It was a fully operational war machine, and it was preparing for a battle. Inside the warship, the Toreki soldiers, who had previously been battling with the AI's defense systems, found themselves caught in the middle of something far bigger than they had anticipated. The ancient ship was now fully awake and prepared to defend itself and Earth. Every system inside the warship hummed to life, and the crew of the Toreki realized, to their horror, that they were not in control. "Commander, the ship's AI has locked us out of all systems," Jorik, one of the soldiers, said with desperation in his voice. "We can't override the controls. We need to get to the core if we want to stop this." Kale, his face grim, nodded. "We don't have much time. If the ship takes flight, it will bring down the entire alien fleet. We must act quickly." The soldiers pushed forward, navigating through the massive ship, dodging traps and evading automated turrets that sprang to life as they moved. The AI was no longer just a passive defender. It was an active participant in the battle, adapting and countering every move the invaders made. But the soldiers pressed on, determined to reach the ship's central control room. Outside, the scene was nothing short of chaos. The alien ships in orbit began to fire at the rising warship, but their laser blasts bounced off its protective shields. The warship's defenses were unlike anything the Toreki had encountered. Every blast from their fleet was absorbed or deflected, as though the ship was impervious to their weapons. It was clear that the ancient technology was far more advanced than the Toreki had ever imagined. In a last-ditch effort, Zathras ordered a direct strike from his flagship. "Target that ship's engines. We need to bring it down before it becomes fully operational." The massive Toreki warship fired a concentrated beam of energy at the warship's engines. The beam hit its mark, causing a massive explosion that lit up the sky. For a moment, it seemed like the warship might fall, but instead of crashing, the ship seemed to absorb the attack. The explosion caused no visible damage, and the warship continued to ascend. Kale and his team had made it to the control room. They were just steps away from the central core when the warship's AI initiated a full lockdown. The entire room sealed shut, and Kale realized that their efforts had been in vain. "The ship's AI is too powerful. We won't be able to override it," he said, his voice heavy with defeat. But just as they were about to give up, the ground shook beneath their feet, and the warship's weapons systems powered up. The AI had realized the seriousness of the situation. It was no longer just defending itself. It was preparing to go on the offensive. The warship's massive cannons, hidden beneath its sleek armor, began to rotate. The AI locked onto the Toreki fleet in orbit, and the ship's weapon systems began to charge up. With a deafening roar, the warship fired its first shot. A massive beam of energy shot into the sky, hitting one of the Toreki ships with incredible force. The alien vessel was instantly destroyed, shattered into pieces by the power of the ancient weapon. "Get to the escape pods," Kale shouted, realizing they had no chance of regaining control. But as they turned to flee, the warship's AI activated another defense system. The ship's internal structure began to shake as its gravity controls were altered. A sudden violent jolt sent the Toreki soldiers tumbling to the ground. The warship was not just a ship. It was an unstoppable force, an ancient weapon reawakening to its true purpose, to defend Earth. The alien invaders had no idea what they had unleashed. What they thought was an easy conquest had turned into their worst nightmare. The warship's systems powered up further, each second bringing it closer to full activation. The Toreki were no longer fighting to invade Earth. They were fighting for their survival. The unstoppable force. The Toreki invaders, who had once thought they were unstoppable, now found themselves facing a nightmare they could not comprehend. The ancient warship, an enormous, dormant relic of Earth's lost civilization, was now fully operational. Its weapons systems hummed with terrifying power, and its AI was calculating the perfect countermeasures to repel the invaders. From the moment the first massive blast destroyed one of their ships, the HFY fleet realized that they had miscalculated everything. They had underestimated the might of Earth's forgotten defenders. And now, they were on the receiving end of a relentless assault. The warship's energy cannons fired again, this time at a different HFY ship. The beam shot through the atmosphere, cutting through the alien vessel as though it were paper. The explosion that followed was deafening, sending shockwaves through the alien fleet. It was a clear message. Earth was not going down without a fight. Zathros, the HFY fleet commander, watched in horror as one of his ships was obliterated in an instant. His hands clenched into fists, rage and disbelief flooding his mind. He had never seen anything like this before. The HFY were known for their advanced technology, but the warships of Earth were something entirely different. They were not just machines. They were sentient, alive in their own way, and they were angry. Increase firepower. Zathros roared, but his orders were falling on deaf ears. His fleet was already reeling, struggling to make any headway against the warship's shields. No amount of weaponry seemed to make a dent. Meanwhile, on the warship, Kale and his soldiers were trapped in the control room, unable to override the ship's eye. The crew had hoped to disable the defenses, but the ship had locked them out of all systems. The massive warship had become an autonomous entity, and its priority was clear: defend Earth at all costs. Despite their efforts, the HFY soldiers could only watch as the warship continued its relentless assault on the alien fleet. Every time they thought they had a chance to regain control, the AI adapted, countering their movements with surgical precision. No matter where they turned, the warship's weapons were always a step ahead. Cal's mind raced. The ship's eye was too powerful to control, but perhaps there was another way. The HFY were no longer fighting for domination. They were fighting for survival. And Earth's last line of defense wasn't just an army of machines. It was a force of nature, an ancient power that would not be swayed. "We can't stop it," Kale said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and fear. "It's too strong." Jorik, one of the soldiers, slammed his fist against the console. "There has to be a way. If we don't stop this, we'll be wiped out completely." The AI had already detected their presence in the control room and activated another set of defenses. The walls around them began to close in, forcing the soldiers to take cover. They could hear the sound of mechanical gears grinding, the ship preparing for the next phase of its defense. The warship was moving again. This time, its thrusters powered up for a new assault. Outside the warship, the HFY fleet was in chaos. Zathros watched in disbelief as more of his ships were destroyed by the Earth warship's unrelenting firepower. The HFY had never faced anything like this, and their technology was no match for the ancient defense systems they were now fighting. "Retreat," Zathros barked, his voice cold with anger. "We need to regroup. We can't take this ship head-on. Move back to the farthest orbit and prepare for a full retreat strategy." But the warship wasn't done yet. It wasn't just defending Earth. It was preparing to take the fight to the HFY. The AI recognized the invaders' weaknesses and began calculating the optimal way to strike back. As the warship adjusted its trajectory, the HFY fleet realized that they were now on the defensive, their lines crumbling as Earth's ancient weapon approached. The warship's AI seemed to know exactly where to strike. With precision, it targeted Zathros' flagship, sending a blast of energy that pierced through its shields and hit the core. The flagship exploded in a fiery burst of light, its destruction sending a shockwave through the entire fleet. The HFY were now reeling, and their once mighty fleet was crumbling under the force of the warship's fury. Zathros, now watching the devastation unfold before him, made the decision to cut his losses. The HFY had underestimated the power of Earth's defenses, and now they would pay the price. His retreat was swift and calculated, as he ordered his fleet to disengage and pull back to the edges of the solar system. The warship's relentless attacks had left them with no other option. Back inside the warship, Kale and his soldiers could hear the vibrations of the ship as it continued to power up, preparing for the next phase of its assault. It was clear that the battle wasn't over yet. The ancient warship had proven its dominance, but the Xereki had not been fully defeated. Kale glanced at his team, his expression grim. "We've lost this battle, but it's not over. We need to warn the rest of the fleet. Earth is not done fighting." Jorik, though weary from the battle, nodded. "Agreed. The warship may have destroyed many of our ships, but we still have time to regroup." As the warship continued to ascend, its engines roaring, it became clear Earth had risen once more, and the Xereki invaders had not only failed to conquer the planet, they had unleashed a force they could never hope to defeat. The calm before the storm. The Xereki had retreated to the farthest reaches of the solar system, but the damage they had caused was already done. Earth's ancient warships had awakened, and for the first time in centuries, humanity had a fighting chance against the powerful alien invaders. But for Kale and his team, there was no time to celebrate. Inside the warship, the atmosphere was tense. The AI had taken full control of the ship's systems, leaving the soldiers with little to do but wait. They were far from home, trapped in an unfamiliar ship that had been dormant for millennia. Its purpose was clear: protect Earth at all costs. But the warship's true intentions were still unknown. "What now?" Jorik asked, his voice laced with frustration. He and the others had hoped they could somehow stop the warship, but the reality was sinking in. The ship wasn't just a weapon. It was a living, breathing entity, and its mission had already begun. Kale glanced around the control room, his face grim. "Now we wait. The Xereki are retreating, but they won't be gone for long. We've just delayed the inevitable. They'll regroup, and when they do, they'll come back stronger than before." The warship's AI emitted a low hum, as if acknowledging Kale's words. Its holographic interface flickered to life, projecting a map of the solar system. Several Xereki ships were still on the outer edge of the system, but there was no sign of them returning yet. "We need to figure out how to stop this," Kale muttered. "The Xereki will have learned from their mistakes, and they'll find a way to bypass the warship's defenses. We need more allies, more ships, more resources." Jorik nodded in agreement, but deep down, he knew they were running out of time. The Xereki were formidable opponents, and Earth's warships could only hold them off for so long. Meanwhile, Zathros, the alien commander, was seething with anger. His fleet had been decimated in a matter of hours, and the shockwave of Earth's unexpected resistance had shaken his confidence. The ancient warship was a force to be reckoned with, and the Xereki had no idea how to counter it. Inside his flagship, Zathros paced back and forth, glaring at the damaged consoles around him. "How could we have been so foolish?" he muttered. "We underestimated Earth. Now we've awakened their ancient defenses." His second-in-command, Ythra, stood by his side, her eyes narrowed in thought. "We still have the advantage. We can rebuild, regroup, and strike again." Zathros stopped in his tracks and turned to face her. "No, we cannot afford another mistake. The warships must be neutralized. I don't care how, but we must destroy them before they become fully operational." Ythra hesitated, then nodded. "There is a way. It will require more time, but we can prepare a countermeasure." Zathros looked at her, his expression hardening. "Then do it, and be quick about it." As the Xereki worked on their plans to return stronger than ever, Kale and his team prepared for the next phase of the battle. They knew the warship was powerful, but they had no idea what would happen when the next wave of Xereki ships arrived. The tension was building, and everyone felt the weight of what was coming. The final confrontation. The solar system trembled under the weight of what was about to come. Kale and his team stood at the heart of Earth's last line of defense. The ancient warship. It had already proven its devastating power, but now, the stakes were higher. The Xereki were regrouping, preparing for a final, all-out assault that could determine the fate of humanity. The warship's AI had continued to evolve, analyzing every movement of the Tereki and preparing for the next battle. It had access to vast stores of knowledge that had been locked away for centuries. But the one thing it couldn't predict was what the Tereki would do next. The invaders had learned from their failures, and they were now ready for Earth's greatest weapon. "Get ready," Kale said, his voice steady but filled with the weight of what was coming. "This is it. We need to be ready for anything." The ship's massive guns hummed, and the control room vibrated with the sound of the warship's systems coming to life. Kale and his team had no idea if they were prepared for the Tereki's next move. All they knew was that the fate of Earth rested in the hands of this warship. Outside, the Tereki fleet was slowly advancing, their ships emerging from the outer edges of the solar system. They had regrouped, reinforced, and were now ready for revenge. Zathros had been given the time he needed, and his fleet had been modified with new technology designed to counter Earth's warship. This time, they were not going to be caught off guard. Inside the warship, the AI's voice echoed through the control room. "Enemy fleet approaching. Weapons systems online. Defensive measures activated." Cal's heart pounded in his chest. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the moment that would decide whether humanity would survive or be crushed beneath the boots of the invaders. On the holographic display, the Exareki ships appeared, their menacing forms gliding toward Earth at an alarming speed. But this time, they weren't just retreating. They were coming in full force, ready to strike. "They're here," Jorik said, his voice tense. "The final battle is upon us." As the first Saraki ship entered the range of the warship's weapons, the AI acted swiftly, firing a powerful energy beam that struck the alien ship's shields. The blast rippled through the Exaraki vessel, but it didn't destroy it. Instead, the shield absorbed the energy, reflecting it back toward the warship. Cal's eyes widened. "They've adapted," he said, realization dawning on him. The Exareki had figured out how to block the warship's most powerful attacks. Zathros watched with satisfaction as his ships executed the plan they had been working on for weeks. The warships were now equipped with reflective shields that could deflect energy-based weapons. It was a game-changer. "Fire everything we've got," Zathros barked, his voice a mixture of desperation and hope. The Exareki fleet unleashed a barrage of missiles, lasers, and energy blasts at the Earth warship, their combined firepower overwhelming. But the ancient warship was not so easily defeated. Its AI swiftly recalculated, adapting to the new threat. Shields activated, repelling most of the incoming fire, but not without damage. The warship's hull trembled under the impact, and alarms blared throughout the control room. "We're taking hits," Jorik shouted, his voice filled with alarm. "Hang on," Kale ordered, gripping the console as the warship rocked violently. "Return fire. Aim for their weak points." The warship retaliated, its guns firing with unrelenting force. One of the Exareki ships exploded in a burst of flames, its shield unable to withstand the barrage. But the Exareki weren't giving up. Their fleet was vast, and their determination was unwavering. As the battle raged on, Kale watched the warship's energy levels deplete. The ship had sustained significant damage, and it was clear that it couldn't continue at full capacity for much longer. "We can't keep this up much longer," Kale shouted, fear creeping into his voice. The AI's voice responded, calm and cold. "Recalculating. Initiating final countermeasure." Cal's heart skipped a beat. What countermeasure? Without warning, the warship activated a secondary system, an ancient weapon, one that Kale and his team had never seen before, a massive energy pulse, more powerful than anything they had used so far, was unleashed. The pulse cut through the Exareki fleet with surgical precision, disintegrating ships in its path. The Tereki were caught off guard. Their shields couldn't handle the power of the pulse, and their ships began to explode one by one. Zathros watched in horror as his fleet disintegrated before his eyes. "No," he roared, his fists clenched in anger. This cannot be happening. The remaining Sareki ships tried to flee, but they were no match for the warship's newly activated weapon. The final wave of enemy ships was obliterated in a matter of minutes. Earth's warship had proven victorious. As the last of the Sareki ships fell from the sky, the warship's weapons powered down. The AI's voice was calm as it spoke. Mission complete. Earth is safe. Kale breathed a sigh of relief, but he knew the battle had taken a heavy toll. The warship was damaged, and humanity's future was still uncertain. But for now, they had won. They had defended Earth from the invaders, and they had awakened a force that would never be forgotten.